really thank you for being here on Valentine's Day. I think it's the absolute perfect date for that Valentine's Day. I just don't understand why y'all aren't here. But I'm glad the ones that you are here, so that's pretty cool. So we've been doing this now 97 months, so you know that we're certifiably insane. So that's a good thing. And I have asked my invited guest and friend to start us off with the invocation and the pledge. So why don't you all stand now so you don't have to stand when we start the pledge part. The pledge will come in a moment. We're doing the invocation first because God over country, guys. But the flag will be up here.
Lord, we thank you so much for this time that we have together, and for those of us who believe in you to know in whom we believe, and that we're persuaded that you are able to keep that we've committed unto you against that day. And Lord, we commit to you tonight this nation, our freedom, ourselves, our persons, and our spirits. And we ask that you bless us in all that we say and do, that our words would be a blessing to you. And we thank you again for this meeting, for John and Cecily and the work that they've done, and for the passion that everyone here feels. In Jesus' holy and precious name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Beba. So as we always do, we sort of whiz through some national issues and state issues and local issues and things that way. And I've got to tell you, this has been one darn busy month. But politics aside on all of this, I think we live in an extremely exciting time. How many of you watched the launch of the Falcon Heavy? Did any of you watch it? I mean, it was pretty darn incredible. And then the landing of those two boosters, simultaneously recovering them, you're just going, whoa, and you're just going, how much better can private enterprise do things over the government? I mean, it was just incredible. So it was launched on the 6th, and if you didn't see it, go on YouTube and watch it. I've watched launches for a good long time because I'm pretty good long time here. And this thing gave me goosebumps. I'm not kidding you. It was like, wow. I hadn't seen a space launch before. So really do go and watch it. It was built by SpaceX, and that's the company that is founded by Elon Musk. And he heads up that electric car company, Tesla, that uses a whole lot of government subsidies. But it was great, and it was a test launch for the next generation rocket that is called the BFR. And the B stands for big, and the R stands for rocket, and you can fill in the F. So anyway, it was really good to hear something other than Russia and memos and immigration and sex scandals and all that kind of stuff. And I got to tell you, it was really darn impressive. So do watch it. State of the Union address. How many of you listened and watched that? Yeah. So what did you think? Any, shout outs? What did you think?
Yeah!
Presidential.
Absolutely. I thought it was a great speech, but, I support this president, so I guess the folks that don't support him probably didn't think as much as we did about it, but I was blown away. I'm going, this is a good speech. That was fun. And then, of course, the very next day, we had the unfortunate accident of a trash truck on the on the tracks, and the Amtrak train blowing into everything and carrying all those GOP legislators and their families. And you're going, so all of a sudden the news switched from the State of the Union speech onto this accident, and then we had a whole lot of conspiracy theories about who caused the train to crash and who put the trash truck on the tracks and all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty darn interesting. So that took up the news, and that took it away from the State of the Union address, which honestly, when you look at some of the polls that were done with things like CNN and things that way, Trump was well received. But, you know, they tried to tell us that the polling wasn't accurate, so that's no problem. So then we got into the Nunes memo, and so the train track crash was Wednesday, and then on Friday the House Intelligence Committee released the memo. And that dominated the news, and darn it, it's still dominating the news. And the Democratic memo, well, you know, somebody asked me, well, what do you think Trump should do when Schiff submits a 10-page memo that, you know, isn't according to the standards of not releasing classified information and standard methods and all that? And it says, hell, I'd send it back to him and tell him to fix it. Well, what did Trump do? He sent it back to him and told him to fix it, you know. I thought it was pretty good. What I want you to really get, because I don't think we all really caught this in the memos, is that the FISA warrant that was used to spy on Carter Page was not a FISA Title VII warrant. It was a Title I warrant, which is a warrant that was it's a Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrant. And what that means is they went to the FISA court with what they felt was documentation heavy enough to put a U.S. citizen like you or me under full surveillance and then catch up everybody in the net that had any communication with them. Way different than a 702 FISA warrant where they want to pick up stuff from a foreign person and maybe they'll catch a few Americans in the mix. This was a direct warrant against a U.S. citizen, and when you look at it, until we see the warrant, we can't say for sure, but it sure doesn't look like something that we should be too proud of. So didn't like that a bit. So, you know, I think it drew a lot of attention, and we're still hearing a lot about it, but there's so much spin. And what I don't like, and what I think you all know in this room, what we don't like, is this idea of this almost open surveillance of American citizens that NASA can just gobble up and have a good time with. So this is a lot bigger than just picking up intelligence under a 702 FISA warrant. Okay, and then after that, of course, we didn't shut down the government except for a couple hours. And so we've got a new debt clock. Now, I hope you all remember back when Obama blew up the debt and the debt clock. We had these pictures all over the place, and the Republicans going, oh, we've got to have fiscal responsibility, we've got to control spending, we've got to do this, we've got to do that. And then you can see that the very, very same thing has happened here. The Dems have, I think, earned their label as a tax and spend party, but the GOP, to me, has earned the label of the borrow and spend party. And it'll be interesting to see how that's going to be defended in the 2018 elections. So what I call the uniparty is what reached the deal. And it's a little, you know, we got the same darn people in there, and they all do the same thing, and it doesn't matter if there's R's or D's, they just march ahead. That's the swamp guys. So we increased military spending by $160 billion. We increased domestic programs by $128 billion, and the need to increase the debt has actually caused interest rates to rise. Has fears of, quote, inflation, all that good kind of stuff. So you have the stock market sort of doing its thing up and down. But what I want you to understand is the stock market isn't really an indicator for Main Street America. Main Street America, honestly, would like to see interest rates a little bit over 1 or 2%. I mean, wouldn't you like to earn some money in a CD or something anymore? That kind of thing. So you've really got a Wall Street versus Main Street thing going on here. And, you know, I moved here in 1978, and I want to tell you my home mortgage was 9 7/8% interest. So 2.8 isn't really horrible, but we're going to see these markets really even out a lot, and see some things that are changing. Inflation, they did show that it has raised about 2%. Certainly nothing like we experienced in 78 to 84, 85, but it's still, you know, inflation is what we're all experiencing when we go to grocery stores and things that way. So it's an interesting economy, something to watch, and it will be interesting to see how the country handles the increased debt. And if they can put it to work to really increase our GDP and therefore be able to, you know, increase our revenues and pay down debt, that's what they're hoping for, and that's what we want them to do. So we'll go into statewide issues. You know, and the first thing I want you to do, you have little pieces, long pieces of paper on your tables there. Legislative hotline. You all need to have this number memorized. You don't need a piece of paper for it. And what you use this number for is to leave messages for your district legislator or the governor, and you're going to let them know what you think about legislation that they're considering and bringing up and that type of thing. And I got to tell you, you know, we know that the majority of our legislators vote the way we want them to. So we go, oh, we don't need to call them. We know how they're going to vote. But they need to have the numbers behind them. They really do. They need to hear from you. So if you think it's an exercise in futility, it really isn't. You need to be making the phone calls. You need to be sending the emails. I'll never forget Matt Shea telling us about, you know, let's take a gun bill. And so here the Democrats come rolling into the House with a shopping cart full of emails telling them to, you know, do whatever it was with gun legislation that we don't like. And, you know, and because we all know how he's going to vote, we don't bother saying anything. Well, he'd like to roll in with some shopping carts too. So the deal is just because we have good legislators doesn't mean that you can sit back and say, hey, we're really smart, we voted right, we're fine, because we aren't. They need our support and they need our help. So, be sure that you have that number. First thing I want to say is there's too many darn bills. I mean, it's crazy. There were 1,300, and this was just a little bit ago, so there's probably more when you really add them all up. But the 1,300 new bills added to carryover legislation from last year that they didn't have time to get to because there's too many bills of 2,300. So they've got at least 3,600 bills, quote, under consideration. Well, you know as well as I do, they're not going to come out of committee, but we're wasting these people's time. I mean, this is just stupid. Right now, 100 measures have passed at least one chamber, and so if you have, let's say, a gun bill in the Senate that passes out of the the judicial and is passed by the Senate, then it ends up going to the House. So it has that two-step process. So we really have some nasty, controversial bills that are coming up, and I'm looking at the Senate. And there are so many coming out of the Senate with 26 votes. You know, there's 49 people in the Senate. They now have 26 because remember, elections have consequences, and they took over the 45th, I believe it was, and with Monka Dingra or whatever her name was. And so away we go, and it's 26, 26, 26, 26, and it just cringes. And they're all supporting these special interest groups of Seattle, and they have issues ranging from a new state income tax to taxes on capital gains, taxes on investments, and we'll get into a couple others that they have done abortion-wise and things that way. And Democratic leadership just does not recognize the concerns of anybody else in the state other than that small little footprint. And all I can say is, can anyone say 50 per state? Yeah. Because this is just getting bad. Now, John Kerry visited Washington State, isn't that exciting, to back Inslee for his carbon tax proposal. Carbon tax, very, very important, They have reduced it a little bit. He went in there at $20 per metric ton. They've dropped it down to 10. But look at those costs that you're looking at for increasing home energy costs from $170 to $532. That's ranging from sort of when it goes into effect until 2029. Gasoline will go up from 10 cents a gallon up to the 30 cents. And the thing that's really disgusting about this whole thing, it's not revenue neutral. It's not saying that we're going to collect these taxes here for carbon emitters and we're going to use it to benefit people that reduce carbon, or we're going to use it for reducing carbon or anything that way. It's a flat-ass tax increase. That's all it is. It's just to increase revenues. So it's not good. And that is actually moved from Energy Ways and Means onto the next step. So not a good situation. And with us not having a majority in the Senate or the House, we're pretty SOL. It's not good. So we go on to other things here. The Senate Bill 6090 is the capital budget. It passed. And 6091 is the Hearst fix. And both of those bills were signed by Inslee on January 19th. So it was obvious that the people had worked together in the off-season, off-session to get something that they could get on, in before the Senate, in before the House, and onto the governor's desk as quickly as possible. And I really applaud the Senate for holding firm on that capital budget, not approving anything until we got a Hearst fix. I have some papers over on the table on the Hearst fix. It's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than not having water in your property. And when you live in the Wyra districts, I think the Spokane Valley has some pretty nasty restrictions on it. But, our 55 got a little better, but it's still, when you have the government going after your private property, it's not a good thing. But, so like I said, it's not perfect, but it did get the job done. So now these two bills passed out of the Senate and into the House. So these ones are, quote, not dead, they're very much alive, okay? So 5992 was initially introduced as a trigger modification device ban that would have criminalized modifications commonly made to firearms by law-abiding citizens. So they amended that on the Senate floor to narrow down the definition of the ban to apply only to bump fire stock attachments. So little improvement there, but it's still passed out of the Senate and is over into the House Judiciary. 6298 is sponsored by the Senator Monka Dingra, Democrat, 45th, that we gave our district up to. Would expand the list of, and this one is horrible. This one is absolutely horrible. It expands the list of domestic violence offenses that prohibit firearm possession to also include harassment. So if you look, this is from the NRA. The definition of harassment under Washington state law is so broadly defined that it includes 37 other crimes, many of which involves no form of actual contact or threat of harm to a person. Under this legislation, even the offenses of graffiti and trespass fall within the umbrella category that could result in a firearm prohibition. Imposing an automatic blanket ban on constitutional rights for these widely varying offenses is excessive and unwarranted. So guys, you've got on your little pieces of paper, write down 6298. If you go to Washington, wallleg.gov, you can put, and then find bills, you can put in 6298, you'll find out what the House partner is. This thing needs every phone call like 10 times a day. Because can you imagine if you, it's just not good. Not good at all. Now the rest of the gun bills are rather interesting, and I did put a sheet of paper up there for those of you that are interested in what these mean or are. So 5444 is still somewhat alive. It's not dead, but it's a little bit on life support. because it passed out of its original committee, Law and Justice, and is now in Ways and Means. So it's sort of on life support, as is House Bill 1122. Now 1122 is your safe storage.
Tell us what they are. I can't read that.
You can't read that?
Fall TV.
5444 is enhanced background checks for assault weapons and large capacity magazines. So it, and like I said, there's papers up there. What's interesting, it requires the chief of police or of a municipality or the sheriff of the county within 30 days after the filing of an application of a resident of this state to issue an assault weapon license for a period of 1 year from the date of the issue, prohibits the residents of a state other than this state from purchasing an assault weapon or a large capacity magazine in this state. And so anyway, you need to check into that one. And then the House Bill 1122 is about the safe storage. And how that reads is includes in the crime of reckless endangerment when a person leaves or stores a firearm in a location where he or she knows or reasonably should know that a child is likely to gain access, and the child does gain possession of the firearm and causes physical harm or death with the firearm, or displays the firearm in a public place, or displays the firearm in an angry or threatening manner, or uses a firearm in the commission of a crime, requires a firearms dealer then selling a firearm, and so you have reckless endangerment if you haven't kept your gun safe. And then it also requires a firearms dealer, when selling a firearm, to offer to sell or give the purchaser a locked box, a lock, or a device that prevents the firearm from discharging. Lauren, you had something to say?
What is the difference between an enhanced background check and a regular background check?
Lord only knows. Maybe, does anybody know?
Too many parking.
It's pretty crazy. So the gun bills that didn't pass out, and I'm not going to tell you what they all are. As I said, if you're interested, there's a sheet of paper up there, are those in yellow. And it doesn't mean they're dead, because the Democrats control the House, the Democrats control the Senate, and they can use any means they want to bring them back and resuscitate them. So don't think that because they didn't pass any from any of those that you can sit back and say, whew, don't have to worry about those ones. Keep your eyes open. Okay, then we go to House Bill 2887, and this is an interesting bill, and look at who sponsored it. You've got Rosselli, Holy, Voles, Ormsby, Shea, McCaslin, and Frame. I mean, isn't that a weird mix?
Yes.
And what it is concerning county commissioners. And it's requiring that a non-charter county, which Spokane County is, with populations over 400,000 people, have a board of county commissioners of 5 people effective in 2022. So, there are other counties in the state that have over 400,000 people, but they're all charter. However, there are counties that are moving up. They have the high 200s and that kind of thing that this will impact as populations grow. And the other thing that it does is say that we're going to focus on district-based elections. So as you know right now on the county commissioner elections, in the primary, only the district votes for the commissioner, but in the general, everybody and his dog votes for him. And so this will restrict it to the district only, so hopefully it will require the commissioners to pay a little bit more attention to their district and not be all over the state. I actually like it. They need to establish a redistricting committee by April 30th, 2021. They've been pretty clever in how they've defined that would work. And it has passed out of the House with a vote of 83 to 14. So it's now in the Senate Committee for Local Government. And you've got to say that it is directed at Spokane County, but I think maybe it's time that we address that issue because it's been a little different. We get into Washington votes. I've got a sad face there because these bills absolutely tear me up. It just breaks your heart. And a lot of it has because we lost that 45th district. So when you look at Senate Bill 6219, it requires a health plan that's issued or renewed on or after January 1st, 2019 to number 1, provide coverage for contraceptive drugs, devices, and other products, voluntary sterilization procedures, and certain necessary consultations, examinations, procedures, and medical services, and that provides coverage for maternity care services to also provide substantially equivalent coverage to prevent the abortion of a pregnancy. And then it also says that they want to review all literature to see if there are any disparities in the access to reproductive health based on socioeconomic status. Here we get into our divisions. We got to divide here by race, sexual orientation, gender identity, and ethnicity, geography, and all that good kind of stuff. And this bill was first introduced in 2012. This is the furthest it's got, and it's all because of what we did with our Senate. So again, elections have consequences. 6199, this one breaks your heart more than anything. The Freedom Foundation, we've had them here how many times talking about SEIU, the requirement that they really sort of put in under the counter that home caregivers, child caregivers, etc., had to belong to SEIU, had to belong and pay dues to the union. Freedom Foundation spent a lot of money and a lot of time going to court and winning to say that this is not so. Then SEIU did everything they could to stop the Freedom Foundation and those of us concerned about this from gaining access to the names and all that kind of stuff of the people that were being forced to pay these union dues because they really weren't, but we needed to get the word out to let them know that they really weren't. And this is a whole just, it circumvents all the work the Freedom Foundation has done. And they've just made a very subtle sounding change. We were protected before, but from what we called the Harris Supreme Court decision. It places them all under the National Labor Relations Acts, which permits employees in states without the right to work protections, such as Washington, to be required to pay dues or fees to Service Employees International. So remember when Baumgartner was trying to introduce the right to work, protections and have us be a state where you just had the right to work and you didn't have to be unionized and all that good kind of stuff. This is one of the problems we have with how this state is. Okay, and then we'll talk about the Congressional Leadership Fund because I'll be getting back into our races, but I'm not going to talk a whole ton because I see Kelly Lotz is here. And Kelly, I believe you're heading up that fund in this area?
Yes, I'm there.
So come on up here.
Is tonight being recorded? Yes. Are you guys?
It is.
So some information I want to give you guys can't be on the recording because it's not like public.
Okay, so let us know what, and John will be sure to trim this part of the conversation.
Make it a memo.
So I am now introducing Kelly Lotz, who is going to be telling us about the Congressional Leadership Fund.
Inside the White House. Don't sign your memo. That's the free speech zone.
Okay, so that's what I wrote, but you know a lot more than I do.
I'll try to be quick too. So if you guys read the spokesman a couple weeks ago, back before we opened, we are a Paul Ryan endorsed super PAC. It is not his super PAC. We are in the district to help support Kathy's race. Our main target is to get high schoolers and college kids involved in politics. So my main part of being here is just to get it out to you guys. If you have kids, grandkids, that you want to get involved in the political process, campaign, and government, our apparatus is set up to help educate them and get them in the field. We're already knocking on doors, and we've already made thousands of phone calls already. So I've got some information. I've got a little flyer with our contact information. We are located down at the Rock Point office complex, and I'm there Monday through Saturday to make calls, and I've actually been out doorbelling, not today because of the snow, but we're doing great. We're having a lot of fun. So just like regular phone banks, etc., if you even want to give some time, I know Jessica Sawyer, who's the treasurer of the county party, she's been down making calls on Mondays on her day off. So I'm happy to have you guys down, especially to rub some shoulders with the millennials that are in our operations. Those of you that have been involved in politics for a long time have a lot to offer them. I can give them a lot of great information, but the years of experience that everyone else has to pass on to them would be greatly appreciated. So see me afterwards if you have any questions, and I have flyers. If you see any of our flyers, they're the largest flyers I have ever seen in my 9 years in politics that we're leaving on doors. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay. And then I just thought I'd touch briefly on Idaho. So we'll just hop over there. Their primary is May 15th. And these are the Republican candidates that are running. So as you all know, Raul Labrador is currently a U.S. representative. Alquist is a businessman and former emergency room physician. And Brad Little is the current lieutenant governor. And there are also 3 Democrats that are running. I don't believe I have anybody here for update on Spokane County, and we have a lot to go through, so we're going to go through that. But I did invite Beva Miles here, and so I guess that falls under Spokane County. And so I hope you've all been on your very best behavior. So many of you know that she is the chair, and she's really the foundation of the Republicans of Spokane County Club. She turned out that organization into a very, very influential group. The official Spokane County GOP has an opening on its executive board due to the resignation of Susan Wilmoth. And Susan was the state committee woman. She resigned at the last board meeting, and so they have called a central committee meeting of the PCOs for March 10th. How many of you are PCOs presently in the room? Cool. Good job. So Beva's running for that position, and I haven't heard from any others, but this is my opinion. Beva is exactly what the SCRCC needs at this time. The present board is 17 people, 13 district leaders. 9 of those 13 are new. And they really aren't getting guidance from people who have been there before and done that. And if they do get guidance, they're sort of shot down by the rest of the executive, you know, the officers. So it's really, I really encourage you guys to go to these meetings. It's pretty darn crazy. So I look at how Beva has really made the RSC an influential part of Spokane politics, and we need that same energy put into the SCRCC, representing the, quote, official GOP of Spokane County, to really pull together and wake this darn voting base up, because it's not a good situation. I listen to Brian, and he tells me how long has the SCRCC been in effect, and it's years and years and years, and they have a database less than what we have for this group here. I mean, you're just going, really? So we need to get the party moving and pulling together, and in my opinion, how you do that is elect Beva. Just so you know, Beva and I don't agree on a whole lot of policy type things, but we absolutely respect one another, and I want to tell you, both of us are what I call rules people. So if you want the SCRCC to move ahead and make a difference in Republican politics, voting for Beva is your best chance. And Beva, do you want to come up and say just a little bit about what you plan to do as state committee woman?
Don't talk. Can I do it from back here?
Oh, come on up.
Oh, get up here. You have to be on the video.
News at 11.
Are you turned on?
She's had her job.
This is the one I'm going to use. Yep. Nope, we're going to use this one. There you go.
So my good friend Cecily calls me about 3 weeks ago, and she says, I just had the craziest idea. And I said, really, what is that? She says, I want you to come to Northwest Grassroots. So I took a deep breath and I went, yeah. You know, the thing about it is, a lot of you don't like me, you don't know me. And I only like really some of you. Isn't that the truth? So let's talk about that. Is that what it's all about? Nope. Is it about whether you like me or I like you or whatever? I know, sweetheart, and I love you too. But here's the thing. When I'm committed to something, I'm committed 100%.
Keep talking. Okay. Just keep it up close to your mouth, you're fine.
So for RSC, yes, we built a very influential organization in the last 10 years. I owe no one an apology for that. I did exactly what I meant to do. When you're talking about state committee woman and the liaison between Spokane County, you the voter, and the state, and when you're talking about the rules that you as PCOs put in place with your bylaws, I am adamant that that's where we all need to be. You can have your differences of opinion. You can like me. I really actually do like most of you. When we talk one-on-one, we make progress. But when you have a board that is so absolutely ignorant and dysfunctional. Now, I do remember the days, John, you remember back in the day, and both you Johns, when the talking over each other and the chaos at the board. Let's give credit where credit was due, all right? The board meetings actually are more peaceful. But that's because no one's allowed to have an opinion. No one's allowed to act without being shut down. Those that do are immediately gavelled down. There are ways, there are means to take care of that. You elected, all of you that are PCOs, you elected a PR person as your chair. What did you expect? We like pretty things and we like events, okay? And she excels at that.
And money.
And we like money. No, I think about right now, if you look, you're about $500 shy of having a zero balance. I think if you look right now, that is the state of the GOP board. I'm concerned. I feel like I'm the only one that can step in and really deal with this on a rules level. And I'm asking you to support me in doing that. I'm also going to tell you this. As the chair of the RSC, I had a job to do and I did it. As state committee woman, the job changes, and I would do that equally as well.
And I believe you resigned as chair of the RSC?
I will no longer be chair of the RSC. That would be a conflict of interest.
So I just really know that we need to do this. I got to tell you, I go to those board meetings and just roll my eyes, and I really encourage all of you to go there. It's pretty cool. So, you know, they should charge, you know, sell tickets. It would be worth it.
I think they're going to need it.
Okay, we're going to go to the city of Spokane Valley, and Arnie Woodard has determined to come here and represent our valley this month and update us on the valley happenings. Let me get you the mic, and there we go. So tell us what's going on in the city of Spokane Valley.
Well, and I don't know how to use a mic, so if it comes across wrong, just put a thumbs down. My merely being here is harassment for every one of you. And I'm not trying to make fun of the law, but that would be true under that law. Really quickly, I will just say this. We've got a really big challenge in the valley. And it's got to be solved this year, and that has to do with our roads and road preservation. Now, you've all heard certain things and whatnot. Nothing has been determined on how we're going to come up with it, the money that's needed. There's about total road preservation is about $7 million a cost. If you just take the shortfall from what we have now, on an annual basis to put towards that, it's about $2.5 million shy, which is a far cry from the 6.1 We were having bad numbers for a number of years. It started in 2011 when I got elected at 13.2, and now I think we're getting refined enough to know what we actually have. The problem with the 2.5 number is that we're taking $1 million out of our general fund, and as you see the economy go up and down, if it goes down, that number is going to get challenged heavily. It also stresses our REIT fees, and subsequently we are in an unsustainable position to continue to put $1 million, whatever it is, $1.4 million I think it is, of our approximately right now $2 million of REIT money back into our roads, just our regular access roads and so on. That money is really needed for the projects that we're trying to get handled, which is the Barker Road underpass. Right at the moment, we're about $4 million shy of a $21 million project of being able to do that grade separation project at Highway 290, Trent, and Barker Road. It's a killer out there, so we need to get that one taken care of. And we're engineering right now Pines Road underpass. That's where we need the REIT money available to us, and the way we're spending it right now, because of trying to maintain roads not falling deeper and deeper and further behind, is going to put us in a jam. So there's going to be a whole series of presentations and whatnot. We had done that before, but it seems like the public didn't know anything about it. It's only this topic's been discussed since 2005, so I don't know why they don't know anything. But it's not funny from the standpoint, we're known for our good roads. The citizens keep telling me we want good roads, but we don't want to be taxed for it. Now, if you've got a way that I can get a genie to give me money, I'd like to know that. What we're trying to do, however, is make sure that every avenue has been addressed, every avenue of savings has been addressed, which we've already done. In the 7 years I've been on council, we have wrung $17 million out of our budget.
Good job.
And we'll put that directly into our roads, quite frankly. That's why Sprague's been paved from one end of our city to the other, as well as most of our other arterials. The problem we've had is that there's residential, which is your road, local access, and then you got collectors up to major arterials. We can't get dime one for 64% of our roads, which is your neighborhood road, in a grant. They wear out at a different rate, however, than what our arterials do. So we've got to make sure that we refine this to a sustainable, what I call a perpetual road. And I hate some of these terms because they all sound global, if you will, or whatever. But the fact of the matter is if you want a nice road to continue so that you're not jackrabbiting like the city of Spokane, where they pass a gazillion-dollar bond, and then in 20 years when it's paid off, they've got all those roads wore out, plus others they never touched. You'll never catch up. We don't want to get there, and we certainly don't want to be jackrabbiting coming back to you every year. Here, we need more money, we need more money, we need more money. When we come to a plan, whatever it is that the public has had say on, it's going to take some guts on that council, and unfortunately we've got 3 people that don't have any guts on that council, and maybe a fourth one, I don't know, and maybe there's a 5th, I don't know. These are hard decisions that the electorate asked us to make decisions on, and yes, if you don't like them, I know my butt will be thrown out, but at least we'll take care of the roads. And so sometimes you just make hard decisions and you do the best you can and give the rest back to God, because it's really going to be in His hands. This year has been kind of easy on us so far for the winter. I hope it stays that way. But anyhow, that's where really our main thing this year. There's always budgets and all that stuff, but we can certainly use any ideas. Don't hesitate to let us know. Come to the meetings, listen, get informed so that you're part of the grassroots. Geez, where'd I hear that before? Anyhow, the grassroots that can help spread the message, because we're going to try to keep it as minimal impact on the taxpayers possible, but there's going to be some if we're going to keep these roads in good shape. So that's my primary message tonight. There's lots of other things we could talk about, but that's a primary one.
Any questions for Ernie? Yeah, you're off the hook. They don't get a lot of time.
Thank you. I get to go have dinner with my wife now.
Right,
Thank you.
right. Happy Valentine's Day. Okay, good deal. So now we're going to go into upcoming events. You have a sheet of paper on there, and Lauren was kind enough to let me know I don't have the dates down on all of them, so you'll need a pen because I didn't do them all right. So initially you've got the Friday Morning Breakfast Club. They've changed their location. So they're meeting at the Something Else Deli at 152 South Sherman. They meet every Friday at 7 o'clock. So there you see on this Friday they have Doug Turner, and the following Friday they have Josh Kearns. So that one hasn't changed other than the location. Mike Voles, this is one I don't have the date down on. He is meeting on, God, I don't have the date here either. I can't believe it. He just sent out the darn thing before I walked out of the house, and it is the same day as the Constitution Party, so it's the 17th, I'm 90% sure. March 17th, great. So change, do put, is it the 17th or the 5th? When is it?
February 17th, his email says.
His email says February 17th, so no wonder I get confused, huh? So February 17th is when his meeting is, so do mark that down because I didn't put it on your pieces of paper. Republicans of Spokane County, that is Beva's group. I call them the Rhinos of Spokane County, but after tonight I've promised I won't do that again. They meet on the, what is that, the third Monday or the fourth Monday?
I'm not telling you.
The third Monday of each month at the Quality Inn, which is at Mission and Argonne at 6:30. Then we have the Constitution Party. They're meeting Thursday, February 15th. These really got out of order, I'm sorry. So they're meeting tomorrow at Sherry's Restaurant. And they're talking about education in America. And it ties into a lot of what we're talking about tonight. And I think that if you're interested in really seeing one of the biggest impacts on our society in this country, it is education. So it's probably a good meeting for you guys to attend. Then we have a telephone town hall Wednesday, February 21st. And what I love about the 4th District, and I've got to brag because I'm in the 4th, but I think we have the best group of legislators out there. And these guys all get on the same call. So you've got your 2 representatives and your senators, and they cover the town hall. And they're always accessible. So that's a phone number. If you're registered with them, they often call you and you just stay on the line and stay on. But if you don't have it, and everybody has their pieces of paper, the phone number to call at 6:30 or a little bit before is 509-404-3049. And again, like I said, it's a great town hall because you got all 3 of them and you sort of get the bases covered. Now Tom Conus, Vicki Horton introduced him to you a couple months ago, and Vicki's not running again, and he is the person that she is recommending to replace her. And I don't know, he hasn't got into this whole swing of campaigning yet because he's taking his wife out for Valentine's Day dinner tonight, so he can't be here. I had to laugh. I'm going, okay, boy, you're going to learn that you're here, you're everywhere every night, and it doesn't matter, but that's how it goes. So his kickoff is Wednesday, February 21st, so a week from tonight, at Dave's Pizza. And you'll notice that a lot of the county people that run for re-election meet at Dave's because it's pretty close to the courthouse, and Dave's has a nice private room and all that good kind of stuff, so it works out pretty well. But Tom is who we're going to be supporting as far as the assessor goes. And then I have a button that I shouldn't have pushed. There we go. Then we have Citizens Alliance for Property Rights, CAPR, and they're meeting next Thursday. And their speaker is Dave, however you pronounce his last name, and he's talking about why we do not want the Avista sale to Hydro One. I'm not sure we have much to say about it, but it's a nice conversation to get everybody upset about. So that's what they're talking on. And then we have a gentleman here tonight that wants to tell you about why this is a landmark, classy event coming up on March 15th, 2 days before St. Patrick's Day. So Tim, would you mind coming up and telling us a little bit about this event?
I know most of you out here, but for those who don't know me, I'm Tim Fitzgerald. I'm your elected county clerk. I was a 30-year Marine, and then I retired and came back to Spokane where my family's at. My kids went to school here, and what's that? Oh, very Italian name, yeah. So, and I ran for the office back in 2014. I was elected to a 4-year term, and it's a campaign year, 2018. So here we go again. The county clerk's office is the second busiest office in the entire county. It's also, and John will tell you this, the least known office in the entire county. No one knows what we do. But it's the second busiest. We do $1 million worth of financial transactions monthly. We handle 11,200 customers a month. We have 169,575 legal files on hand. When I took over, and one of the promises I made to you would be cleaning house, when I took over we had 238,465 files and $5,000 a month in storage. And we've been eliminating the files with court orders and putting them all digitized, and microfiche and floppies are a lot smaller than your paper files are. But again, the county clerk, there's a lot of things that go on, and most people don't know about it until they walk in and they go, oh, you guys handle that too? So it's, it's a great job. So that's why I'm running for the office again. I enjoy the job. We have a big year coming up. We are transitioning to a brand new case management system. Anybody who deals with the legal system, that's terrifying to them. For 39 years, we've had the simple process of SCOMIS, which is a case management system. You digitize all your legal files onto that system, and then you access it to the state. Odyssey is a new system coming, and our job will be transition Spokane County, which will be the second largest county to go onto the system in November of this year. So it's a lot of money, a lot of training, and we owe it to the taxpayer to do this right. It's been a challenging system, and King and Pierce County opted out. They're not going to do it because they have the revenue to buy their own system. But the rest of us don't have that, so we're going on to the state system. So this will be a big year for us on the campaign trail and getting things ready for Odyssey. So up above is a fundraiser, and I'm trying to do something different. People don't want to hear the candidates always talk about how good they're doing. I let people talk for me. But what I will do is I'm bringing out my former boss. I was the chief of staff for all NATO forces in southern Afghanistan, about a 28,000 man force. My boss was General Mark Reganis. He also commanded all Marine forces in Korea. And after he retired from the Marine Corps, he goes out now and they train the combatant staffs. His area of expertise is Korea and Okinawa and Philippines, Indonesia, and China. So us as an inland empire here in Washington, it's important that we know what's going on for real in Korea, and China, and Indonesia, and Japan. So yeah, I'm going to have him come out on the 15th of March, and I'm going to have him speak to you. So it's a fundraiser. It starts off at 6 in the evening, goes all the way till 8 o'clock in the evening. Dinner will be served at about 6:30. I'll do some short speaking, and then he'll do most of the speaking, and then he'll answer questions for you on what's going on out there. So if you can make it to the fundraiser, please say I got invitations on the side of the table over there, or contact me, or contact Ms. Tracy Pendarvis. And it's about $75 a person, and it'll be a great night for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And he also has a Facebook page, and if you follow that, you can click on it to get your tickets and things that way. And as he said, you've got invites on the side table. So, we're a lot closer to North Korea than New York City, so I think it's probably quite interesting for us to learn what's going on. Okay, and then on March 23rd, we have the author of a book, Cliven Bundy, Terrorist Crossed Out Patriot, at Center Place. Very interesting story. This gentleman is an author. He's a motivational speaker, he's a public speaker, he's a radio host, and he's an ex-felon. And he was found guilty by a federal court, and I've learned that when the federal government goes after you, 97% of you are going to be guilty. So I'm starting to take those with a grain of salt. And of misappropriating grant funds, and sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. He didn't serve nearly that time, probably good behavior and all the other things they do, but he was sent to a halfway house. But the halfway house was full, so they moved him into the Pahrump Correctional Facility in Nevada, and housed there also was Cliven Bundy. And the two of them basically, after they felt each other out, and are you really a real person, and can you be trusted, and should I tell you anything, and all those kinds of things, actually became quite friendly with one another. And Cliven commissioned him to write his biography. And so he spent 60 days in prison documenting Bundy's amazing story. And like I said, 97% of the cases that the BLM, the Department of whoever, or whatever, when the federal government gets their teeth into you, you're dead. You might as well just jump off a cliff. And so the results of the Cliven Bundy trial and what we've learned our government did to those American patriots is pretty darn amazing, and I think this is an evening that you'll really want to attend. So mark that down for March 23rd. And then Stephanie Cates asked me to mention that on Saturday, April 14th, the Spokane County Republican Party is putting on what they call a political action conference. It's a day-long conference, and you'll just need to check their Facebook page for any other details. So, like I said last month, my New Year's resolution is to mention donations, because I always get a bad time from John that I never do. And so now I have 10 months to go. So it does take money to keep things going. Really appreciate how you do contribute, and you'll find the little canisters around. So what we're going to do now is move into the main presentation. And this slide really infers that it's the GOP, it's the Republicans versus the Democrats. But it's really so much more than that. And tonight what I really want to do is discuss the factions within the Democratic Party. So, and where the Democratic Party really seems to be headed. So we all know that the Republican Party has factions. Well, the Democratic Party has factions too, and they're pretty darn serious. And I don't like the way it's going, and I need a drink of water, please. Yoo-hoo. Cool. So how many times have we heard this is the most important election ever? You got to get out and vote. Got to do it, right? Well, this is the most important election ever, guys. It really is. It's a really true statement. So when you look at registered voters, this is a little discouraging. And I'll get up close so I can see it, because I know you in the back can't. Republican Party looks at 55 million registered voters. They're red. Democratic Party is blue, 72 million. And Independents, 42 million. So you might look at that and you're going, whoa, that doesn't look too good. But that's not the whole story. So that's why we're going to look at the factions within the Democratic Party. There's going to be some falling out. I don't know if you all remember when we had what we called the Blue Dog Democrats. That sort of shifted over to the Republican Party in 1972 when McGovern was running for president. Same thing can happen now. This is important, and I have a little video here that will explain this a little more, but really pay attention to it. I think it's going to work.
So why has it been so easy for them to get people on the left who aren't communists to push forward their agenda? Once I looked at the political scale, it all started to make sense. On the far left, you have 100% government, and on the far right, zero government. Anarchy is no government and doesn't make sense at all. On the far left, you have socialism, communism, and Nazism. All systems that have a socialist form of government with only slight variances between them. Traditionally, Republicans were slightly to the right of center, and Democrats were slightly to the left. In recent years, though, through the radical influence of the media, Hollywood, and the multitude of Marxist professors in our universities, both parties have slid to the left, with the Democrats going so far they have openly joined hand in hand with the radicals. That's why they all work together. All the groups on the left now have the same goal, a socialist America.
So both parties, as we said, have factions. And perhaps that's, we know about the Republican factions a lot, and that's probably because we hang out with Republicans. So we sort of know who's who and what's what and who, where some people stand and that type of thing. But the Democrats have the factions too, and maybe they really have the same conversations that we do. Now, a friend of ours who lives in Ohio and is very politically active told us that we had Kasich in the wrong spot. He needs to go more to the left. He lives in Ohio and says it's just absolutely disgusting how Kasich is behaving. So what really I'm going to do tonight is talk about the Democrats, because we all know where we fit in this graph, and of course we all think we're right. So wherever you stand, we think we're right. So the Democratic Party today, we've got neoliberals. Those are sort of your blue dog Democrats. The Democrats refer to them as yellow dogs, by the way. And then you have the New Deal, or the liberal wing. And then you have the radical purists, or the progressive wing. So the conservative wing of the Democrats, or the neoliberals, they're called the label of dinos. So you've heard rhinos. These are Democrats in name only. So same difference, right? And like I said, they are also referred to as yellow dogs because they turn their tails and run kind of stuff is how the Democrats, the other groups portray them. The blue dog can be a critic of Wall Street, but they also can be pro-life. They are all usually pro-union. They're immigration controlling. They feel immigration needs to be controlled. And they're Second Amendment Democrats. So a lot in common with us, and not so much, especially if you look at the left side of the Democrat spectrum. So if the Democrats keep shifting to the left, I think we can see some of these people shifting parties, or at least voting with the Republican people. So, it's definitely an area we need to explore. They're often the southern states and some of the border states is what you want to look at for these folks. Then we go to the liberal wing, the New Deal, I call them the establishment Democrats. And they're for consumer protection, environmentalism, LGBT stuff, reproductive rights, all that good kind of stuff. 57% of Democrats identify as liberal on social issues, and 41% of them are liberal on economic issues. So this is really the group that feels that big government can solve everything. Just throw more money at it, throw more government at it, throw more regulation at it, and we'll fix the whole darn thing. But this is sort of interesting on some of the more recent social issues. 15% of this group supported allowing small business owners to discriminate by refusing products or services to gays and lesbians based on religious beliefs. 15%. 22% were opposed to legalizing marijuana. 12% opposed same-sex marriage. And 8% believe homosexuality should be discouraged. So there's even some areas in this group to explore. So there's room, you know, for some of these Democrats to possibly vote differently. Okay. So then we're going to go to the progressive wing. And these are the radical leftists. And to me, this is the most concerning group that we've got out there because they seem to be dominating the party. They're extremely energized and they're making a tremendous amount of noise. So on this group, think of Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Tom Perez, Keith Ellison, Maxine Waters. I mean, you know, you get the picture of these guys, right? They're for the $15 minimum wage. They're for Medicare for all, free college, wipe out college debts, pay for abortions, ban fracking, ban all fossil fuel, capitalism's bad, you know, just on and on. We don't need a strong military. Hey, we don't even need a military. And so this is a group that we really want to focus on tonight because they honestly are the group that are driving the Democratic Party. And it's frightening. It's really frightening. They've got to be stopped. Now, I don't expect you to be able to read this horrible graph here, but what I want you to focus on is the bottom. So you've got Karl Marx, I think you can all see that, the Frankfurt School, Fabian Socialist Communist Party, and then you go to the top line, you see Hollywood, nonprofits, media, labor, education, churches, and government. So what Marx taught was that the way to destroy a society was to undermine and destroy the structure. And the structure are those labels that are on the top. So if we were going to label the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, communists or Marxists would be ridiculed. I mean, would just be, you don't know what you're talking about, don't call them those bad names, all that kind of stuff. They've sort of been able to be accepted as liberals, they're accepted as progressives, but when you really look at their agenda, they really are far more socialistic, Marxist, or communist than anything else that you could describe. So let's go back and talk about good old Karl. And he had these goals. Destroy the family, destroy private property, destroy religion, and destroy the nation. So how do you destroy a family? Doesn't sound, I mean, how do you do that? Well, it started with feminism and promoting the idea that women were second-class citizens, cooped up in their home, raising children, not being able to explore their whatever they were, and I mean just really put down for being housewives, raising families, creating that family structure, building that moral foundation, and keeping families tucked in and all tight together. Nah, that wasn't important. It was way more important to burn your bra, get out there, and, you know, experience the workplace. They deserved a career. They deserved equal pay. Being a wife and a mother weren't important. I mean, this was a changing American culture. You got to get up with the times. And then divorce started to become accepted. I mean, I don't know when you guys went to school, how many kids did you know that came from a divorced family? Very few. I mean, it was like, wow. You might have had one of the spouses die and had a single parent family, but other than that, it was just not heard of. And now the divorce rate in America is over 40% and fewer than half. It's actually 40% of our kids today that live in a traditional family household. So you can imagine when you send your kids to school, the kids that they're associating with, because if you've got a regular family, their kids don't, their friends don't, it's really strange. So my way of looking at it, I'd say our family is pretty well on the way to being destroyed. Anybody disagree? It's pretty darn evident. So let's go on to property rights. Our property rights are constantly being challenged by regulation. Around our area, just think of the problems citizens encounter with the BLM, EPA, and like I said earlier, it's pretty darn hard to win against the government. 97% of all federal cases are won by the prosecution. And we've highlighted some of the cases that have been locally here, and it's pretty egregious what we do to our American citizens for expanding a pond or, things that way. You're just going, this shouldn't be. And to me, that's why the Bundy outcome was just absolutely earth-shattering. Very, very seldom happens. And just recently in our area, think of what the Hearst decision did. That was the Supreme Court actually making policy. They weren't being judges. They were making policy. And look what it did to property rights. And so we're, owning private rural land is getting more difficult by the day. And it's all within this government structure and the regulations and that kind of thing. So when you think of destroying religion, I think we're all familiar with John Adams' quote, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It's wholly inadequate to the government of any other." So what other, better way to really destroy America than to undermine our moral beliefs? I mean, get rid of those moral beliefs and you cleared a pathway. I mean, woohoo, let's go. So when I've got that there, it says unthinkable to radical. What does that mean? So what I don't think I have this slide up here, but what's really interesting in the progressives is 49% of them are academics. And they think they're extremely brilliant, extremely smart, and they like bringing up all of these sort of crazy ideas to put into the conversation. It's sort of like, float the balloon and see where it lands kind of thing. So come up with an idea that seems basically pervert, very outlandish. It doesn't matter what, just bring it up in discussion. And then you move it on to the next step, radical to acceptable. So let's say the radical idea you came up with was the idea of killing a baby as it exits the womb. I mean, any of you, if I said, let's kill babies as they exit the womb, and you'd look at me as if I had, two heads and I was really a sick person. So let's call it dilation and extraction. Okay? So now it's a medical term, it's a medical procedure, and it becomes more acceptable. And people in society can talk about that because it's not killing babies, it's dilation and medical extraction. I mean, hey, it's necessary. And abortion slowly over time became acceptable to society that believes killing babies is immoral. Our society feels killing babies is immoral. They just don't connect abortion and killing babies. You can ask them, if a baby is born and it's viable and it's kicking and doing its thing and you kill it, is that murder? They say, yeah. If you kill it a day before it's born, is that murder? No, that's abortion. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But that's what's happened to our moral fabric. So what about sodomitic unions? Pretty radical, right? Think back 20, 30, 40 years. But change it to same-sex marriage and it becomes far more acceptable. So then when we move from acceptable to sensible, born this way, can't help it, that's the way it is, God did it, you know, whatever. It just becomes an accepted norm in our society. And if you hold on to your moral beliefs and speak out about it, then you're going to be labeled a bigot or worse. So what do? Keep your mouth shut. That's the way it is. That's what's happened. So we go to sensible to popular, and we can personalize all of this. So you know somebody who's LGBT, right? Sure you do. They're good people. You don't hate them. Do you know anybody who's divorced? Sure. They're good people. You don't hate them. Know anybody who's had an abortion? Most likely. Good people. You don't hate them. So if you don't hate them, how can you disapprove? And how do we really, you know, stop what's happening to the moral fiber of our country? So do any of those arguments ring a bell with what you've seen has happened in our country over the past 20, 30, 40 years? It's pretty amazing. It's pretty darn amazing. And so all of a sudden what seemed unthinkable when it first started being discussed becomes policy. The moral fabric of our country is being shredded just a little bit more. And what I want to ask you is, will our children, who, if they're little, or our grandchildren have the same aversion or opinions to these practices as we do? No, because it's going to be part of the normal world that they've been brought up in. So that's how you really destroy the moral fabric of a country. So do you see what's happening to our country and how we just have acquiesced to what's going on? It's just how it goes. So here's Bernie in 1985, and I know you in the back can't see this. The heritage of Castro will be felt for generations to come. He's an example for his people, for America, and for the world. One day in the future, Americans will embrace socialism, but we are still far from that day. Do any of you think Bernie's really changed a whole lot over those 30 years? Absolutely not. In this quote, the American people will never knowingly adopt socialism, but under the name of liberalism, they will adopt every fragment of the socialist program until one day America will be a socialist nation without knowing how it happened. And that was a presidential candidate for a socialist presidential candidate called Norman Thomas. So it's pretty interesting what is happening within our whole political spectrum of this country. So now you know a little bit more about our opposition in this coming election. One of the biggest things they do is divide. You know, let's talk about equality, let's talk about sex, let's talk about anything. It's a division. It's the real Hegelian dialect that, you know, let's get everybody opposing one another. And then we're going to shout racist, we'll shout this, we'll shout that at them. Electing Obama was a huge step forward for the radical left arm of the Democratic Party. And then when Trump came along, they absolutely were unhappy, didn't like it one darn bit. They are energized for this off-year election. They want control back. They want to keep the country rolling to the left, and it's honestly up to us to stop them. You know, it's not even their socialist agenda that they're pushing, because a lot of these people that are out demonstrating and marching and holding signs and screaming and all that don't know the agenda. It's hatred. Hatred is what is honestly motivating so much of this. So I like this one. An elephant divided ain't worth peanuts. Republicans unite. And this is really, you know, where we're at. We can only stop them if we unite. We've got to stop the smaller things that cause us to disagree and look at the overall picture and really determine that we have one huge job ahead of us. We've allowed things to move so far to the left. You're going to have your heels dug in and really doing everything that you can do to stop this. And that means right now that we need to be supporting our Republican candidates, whoever they are, other than Vance. Anyway, I can't help it. So the resist movement is truly motivated by hate. And the thing that's frightening is they are winning local elections. And the thing that you also need to understand is that the Democrats are being very quiet about the local elections that they're winning all across the country. They're not crowing, they're not raising a flag for us to know. They're making steps forward and really capturing this. You've got a tremendous amount of money being poured into very local events. I heard today that the prosecuting attorney race in Bexar County, that San Antonio area of Texas, the Soros group has spent over $70,000 in that race. That's a local race in a county, and they have this kind of, and it's a primary, and they have this kind of money rolling in not only from that group but from other left-wing groups. So the challenge is really, really big. It's really, really serious. We seem to think that we're living in the red county of Spokane County and we're okay. Guys, we're not. We need to quit this crap and get going. So right now, looking at our national elections, looking at Maria, and this could change because these change continually. She has one Democrat, one Libertarian, and one Independent running against her. Let's talk about our district. Right now in Washington State, and this could have changed, but the Democrats have targeted the 3 districts there that I have listed. The third, Jamie Herrera Butler, who, again, I don't agree with how she votes, but she's better than, and we need to get behind her. Same with Kathy McMorris Rogers. And then the 8th district, I think will be pretty good. Dave Reichart is not rerunning. Dino Rossi is running in there. Reichart won by over 20 points in 2016, so it looks like Rossi, unless he follows his normal standard procedure and loses, should be able to win that one. But we'll talk about Kathy. And she has, you know, I've been following this for a while, and I think that she has a pretty darn formidable opponent this time. One thing I want you to start doing is not call her Lisa Brown, but call her Lisa Brown McClatchy. Use that last name. Look up some of her history. Look up some of the stuff that I'll bring talking points next month for you, so you'll know what to be able to say about her that's truthful, but is not what we want. But we really need at this point to, I know you didn't think I'd say this, rally behind Kathy McMorris Rogers. And she has got to be reelected. And I don't want to see another Republican throw their hat in this race. And I don't want to see us bad-mouthing Kathy McMorris Rogers. She's got to get reelected. And anyway, just think of it this way, Eastern Washington's finally getting some attention. They usually just overlook Washington totally, so we got some attention coming to us. So when you look at the Washington state, 24 seats out of the 49 for the Senate are up for election. We've got 2 positions in our area, Michael Baumgartner and Shelley Short. And then the guys that are not up until 2020 would be Billig, Padden, and Schechler. So we've got those 2 Senate ones. Shelley should be fine. She has that same Kieran Hardy nut job running against her. And she's got $415 according to her PDC reports right now. So, and there's a Paul Schneider who's filed to oppose Baumgartner. He filed back in June 2017, and that's all he's done so far. There's no money in his treasury or anything that way. So, and then of course, state representatives are all up for re-election every 2 years, and they've all filed with the PDC, so they're all running. And so right now, there's an Ingemar Woods showing as running against Bob McCaslin.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if Ingomar has changed to run against Matt Shea yet or not, because usually they get confused as to what position it is, but last time I looked he was still there. So we're still going to need to see if he keeps running for position 2 or switch to position 1 against Shea. But either way, we've got to retain our 4th district. Rod?
If you'll recall, Ingomar Woods ran against Pam Haley. He's the convicted felon.
Oh, okay.
Just saying.
Good. Maybe you can shoot us over some op research so we can let everybody know. He said that Ingomar Woods was the person that was running against Pam Haley, and he was a convicted felon. So, okay, cool. Got a lot of judges with expiring terms. And in the Supreme Court, there are 3. In our area, we're Division 2. We've got those 3, Laurel Sidaway, Robert Lawrence Berry, or 2, excuse me. And then there are a lot of Spokane County Superior and Different Court judges. But I think you've all seen how the McCleary ruling and the Hearst ruling and things that way made a huge impact on all of us. And so judges are important. And I think often we overlook the importance of them. We don't get to know who they are. They're hard to figure out who they are. And so we're going to need to do more research and more work in that area. So let's get on with the problem at hand, and a lot of it to me is voter turnout. Voter turnout in the United States fluctuates.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. National elections and recent elections, about 60% of the voting eligible population votes during a presidential election. Isn't that disgusting? 60%. Pretty crazy. But in the off years, what we're looking at now, that drops down to 40%. So, you know, that's just not right. And turnout is always, you know, lower for those odd year primary and local elections, which you guys just experienced. We were down in the 30s. So we've got a problem with voter turnout. We have a problem with really educating our voter base to have them understand why they need to be voting at all elections. So we need to think about ways to generate interest and excitement. Now in Washington State, I really feel that we have an advantage. A lot of states, you know, because both parties have drives to register voters. I think Kelly will attest to that. We have drives to register voters. Democrats have drives to register voters. But here in our state, we don't register by party. Whereas in other states, you register whether you're an independent, a Democrat, or a Republican. So, you know, if the Democrats register 100,000 people, if they lean Republican, that's sort of cool. So you just don't know what's going on there. So we just register. So it's really about winning hearts and minds, getting the word out, and where we're at a disadvantage is we no longer have regular talk radio call-in shows. We don't have a supportive press, and so we need to really investigate and look at other ways that we can be making an impact in reaching people so they know what's at stake, why they're voting. When I was doorbelling, it was one of the stupidest things in the world. I had one man tell me it was too much work. You got a ballot that's mailed to you. You can find out, I mean, you got voters pamphlets that are mailed to you. So you got to mark stuff and put a stamp on it and mail it, and it's too much work. I mean, you probably don't want that person voting anyway, but you're just going, this is crazy. So voter turnout is huge, but an energized voter base is better. And we need to really get some excitement going. So, you know, it says the winning side in American politics is always the side that offers the biggest tent. Building a winning majority requires thinking past left and right, and successful American parties must be coalitions of enemies. And so I don't want to consider us enemies, but I do want to consider us different factions, and I do want to say that by binding together and marching in the same direction, we're going to be a hell of a lot better off than throwing spitballs at one another. It's just sort of silly. So we need to form an alliance with all the factions of the GOP, march lockstep to victory in November. And so, you know, we have a slogan, America over party, Constitution is America over policy, but this is about America. And we are not slowly anymore, we are rapidly moving to the left. And you know, maybe if you have kids that are going to be going to college and you want their college paid for, that sounds good to you, but somebody's got to pay for all that stuff. So, you know, what did Margaret Thatcher say? You know, socialism works fine until you've run out of other people's money. And that's where we're at with the debts and, you know, the fiscal things that we're looking at. So we're looking at all-out support for Cathy McMorris Rodgers, all-out support for Matt Shea. I don't want to see anybody file against him, but we can't stop them. But I don't want anybody in this room supporting that nut job that decides to file against him. And our other GOP legislators. You know, I was ready to throw Baumgartner under the bus when he voted for the gas increase, but darn it, we need to keep him in office. In fact, you would have been so proud of him with the abortion legislation that they put through and wanting to, you know, have all your health care coverage, have to do this and things. The amendments that man put up that kept getting voted down, I mean, he was a bulldog. And, you know, it's just sad that we don't have that majority and we don't have that wall in the Senate anymore. And, you know, by doing this and by not having meaningful candidates running against our good guys that have established a pretty good reputation in Olympia, then they can go into the districts that are close, help them, and maybe we can get that majority back in both the House and Senate. So, you know, Matt's extremely well respected in Olympia, and he's big weight when he goes into the districts that are close. And if we can free him up to be doing that kind of stuff, and Senator Padden, and you know, that kind, it's going to help the state. So we need to think big. We don't need to be thinking about our own little differences. So we need to work together to retain the seats we have, hopefully gain more, and get control back in the state, you know, both in the Senate and the House. You all know this quote, united we stand, divided we fall. Let us not split into factions which must destroy that union upon which our existence hangs. So very important. So what I'm asking you all to do is lower the rhetoric among the GOP groups. I will refer to the RSC as Republicans of Spokane County, not the other word I used today. And I'm sure they're going to stop bad-mouthing this group, at least until the election's over. So, you know, to me, we're stronger together. And for, you know, what we need to do is focus on what we have in common, not the differences that we have. So I do appreciate Beva coming tonight, and I'd like to know if you have anything to add.
I would.
You got to come up here.
In the free speech zone.
That'll be done.
Love you too.
That's what you get for sitting in the back.
I know.
Don't tell us that.
I don't want you to change your opinions and your ideas. I don't want you to give up those things. One of the reasons that Cecily and I have become friends over these years, I learned so much from her. You will always learn more from people who disagree than those who are right by your side saying, oh yeah, oh yeah. You always will. I have a great friendship with Vitaly. Do we agree? No. I respect him. I respect Cecily. Open that conversation. Don't change your mind on all these little things. Those are things that are passion. They come from your heart, and that's where you are. But respect my right to do the same. And I so appreciate Cecily's presentation tonight, because I too have said many times, you can ask any RS member, lower the rhetoric. No more nasty, no more emails, no more others. We have got to work together on certain things. Will we all agree on things? No. Lauren, I'm not going to hug you and sing Kumbaya. It's not going to happen, dude. But when we can sit in a board meeting and agree, this is what the rules say. When you step outside those rules, you disrespect the PCOs that voted on them and put them there, I'm on your case. I may not like that rule, but until we legitimately change it among the PCOs that passed it, and I give you a solid reason why, that rule stands. So I don't want you to change, okay? Don't be anything other than what you are, because I promise you I'm not going to be. I've been outspoken for over 10 years now, and I'm going to keep being that way. But I learned so much more from those people that tell me off. Okay, so thanks, Cecily. I appreciate that. Where'd you go?
I'm behind you. So I hope you got that this is a important election, that we all need to sort of get together and back the Republicans that are running, whether you think they're the best out there or not, because they aren't, but that's how politicians are anyway, so, you know, you're not going to get the best. And so now we get to our open mic session, and I know Pat Mann is asked to talk, and I think Scott McClay is asked to talk, and anybody else here who wants to say a few words may talk. So come on up here, and remember that you are on video and everybody can watch it that wants to.
Thank you, Cecily. I wanted to come up here and talk to you a little bit about my experiences with Beppa Miles as a new district leader.
Happy Valentine's Day.
This year. I have been just confounded with what I found as far as a crisis-driven, lawlessness on the board and disagreement and trying to be informed, and If there's anything I found out about Spokane is the main street should be changed. It's called Division because it's very true, and sadly. But all good people on the board. So what's the malfunction? We have an excellent chair as far as a cheerleader, a spokesman, event planner. She's excellent with that. I dove in the past year looking for rules, policies, procedures. There's people here in the room and the history to try and figure out what was wrong. And I was on the Policy and Procedure Committee, and also I'm on the Bylaw Committee. Beva Miles is on both of those. We don't agree with everything, but you know what? I have such respect for her. She is a strong lady. She's a leader, and not a bully. She expects you to bring your points up, and we'll discuss it. Sometimes I found myself to be wrong, and sometimes she has found that maybe she needed to listen to someone else. But it's the give and take and her willingness to do that. And I don't know how I would have gotten through the year without her being, there's a few rocks on the board, and I appreciate her for that. Thank you, Beva.
So now you see why you aren't on the board and you aren't PCOs, right? Crazy. Scott, you said you wanted to say something?
I do.
This is Scott McClay.
Scott McClay.
I don't know whether to say the famous or the infamous.
Infamous. Terrorist for the truth. Probably comes as no surprise. A lot of you have heard that I'm the target of an FBI anti-terrorist investigation. And, you know, a lot of things get said about me. I'm pretty dedicated. I love the Lord. I'm always on my knees, and I live it. I walk it. I am a warrior for the truth. It's very likely I'll be a candidate for sheriff. I'm no stranger to this community. Although I'm from Montana, I am on call tonight. I'm a registered respiratory therapist. I attended the old Opportunity Elementary right down the street here at the corner of Bowdish and Sprague, next to the post office that used to be a Safeway. I attended the last year that school was open. I attended the new Opportunity Elementary, which is now being replaced, in 1968. I attended North Pines Junior High. I went to U High and graduated from Central Valley High School. I have several degrees here from local schools. Served as a board member on the Chamber of Commerce, honorary Air Force commander. I just found myself getting involved in some of the local things going on here that I couldn't find the answers. I just kept asking. And through that process, I've been sued, I've been arrested, I've been incarcerated, I've been flogged. I'm a dad, I'm a grandfather, a great-grandfather, and all my family is here in the Valley, a city that I helped create. So, while I'm being flogged pretty heavily right now, I want you to know who I am and what I stand for. I'm unwavering, and I know that's caused some friction between some of us. I knew Jackie Gallion when she was knee-high to a grasshopper. I think Carol Snyder used to babysit me.
Your kids.
Goofed up on that one. Well, I think she still thinks she's babysitting me. But, you know, I go back. You know, I've worked on so many campaigns in the Valley with so many candidates. They've all been pro-God, pro-gun, pro-guts, pro-Constitution, and that's my heart. So, it's been said that there's an investigation against me in the Sheriff's Department for making death threats. There isn't. It's been said that there's an investigation going on against me in the Police Department for death threats against our sheriff. There isn't. It's been said that the WSP is investigating me. They aren't. Through these years, I actually served the Sheriff's Department's task force in the Aryan Nations and in the Order, and was a CIA candidate. And I have lots of friends in law enforcement and lots of friends in every segment of this community. So I look forward to continuing and serving you and serving us in the vision that the Spokane Valley, our agenda, stands for, and not the Spokane downtown agenda and the Spokesman Review. It's going to be ugly. You're going to see me on the front page of the paper every Sunday morning. But just know I love God, He loves me, and that's how it works. Amen. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Ooh, got through with almost not one squeak there. That was cool. But I do think, you know, we end up not knowing the full story on so many things. And this is an opportunity for you guys to talk to Scott. You know, I think one thing when we were talking about what to not, you know, really stop, you know, the bickering between factions and this, I would really say, stay off of Facebook. Lord, I can't believe some of the garbage that some of our electeds throw out there. You're just going, are you serious? And just don't respond, and then it's not fun anymore. So again, I thank you very much for coming. And we'll see you next month. Go ahead, it's going to be the same day, yeah, because there's only 20. So 14th of March. And thank you all for being here. And remember Tim's invitations there on the table. Hopefully you got all your upcoming events down. And Rob, you have something to say?
Saturday,
Up front.
What? Up front. Just like Toastmasters.
Free prison, right here.
No, we're just like Bunkerville. You got a free speech zone here.
Don't be afraid, Rob.
Okay, Saturday at 10 o'clock at the Airway Heights City Council Room.
Mike Volz, Representative Mike Volz, will be giving his town hall. And last time there was quite a number of snowflakes, you might say, that showed up. So if you can make it, not just because you're from the 6th district, but the whole county, try and show up and give them some support. I think he'd appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah, we did announce it. So that's Saturday at 10. It's on your sheet. That was one of them that I didn't have a date on. So, and Rob's so right. These people are organized and they come out for stuff. And they have their cards and they got their signs and they do their thing. And, I'd love it if you'd all get organized and get signs and holler and yell and do your thing too, because you'd scare the heck out of them. As soon as you really confront them, they go away. But if you don't confront them, they just have a good time. So you really need to move your feet, get off your butt, get out to these things and make some noise. So again, thank you all. Thanks for being here.